Welcome, Degens, to week 2, where we go down over the NFC East. I am here with, as always, Daddy Degen Watkins. We also have our special guest, TheEdge, with us today, and he's actually going to stay with us the entire cast. So there's going to be 3 of us running through. Say hi, Edge.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Hi, Edge.
All right, so we're doing the NFC East today. We're going straight into or anything like that. Um, we're going to start off with probably the quietest team out of the NFC East, which would be the football Giants. So we did have a question about it, and I'm actually going to let Watkins answer it because Watkins says he conversates with uh, uh, the Giants owner quite often. So
I
let
don't
me
know about
pull up
quite often, but I have
quite
conversated
often
with
more
him.
than anybody else ever. Honestly, I think I've talked to him once. So, the question was basically his lack of any direction and lack of moves on what the plan is for him and his team. So, Watkins, what would you answer that as?
The little that I have talked to him, I'm under the assumption that he has not made any major moves yet because he doesn't really feel like he has to.
Okay.
We're not even into the preseason yet. The Giants have a lot of very good players that could help contending teams make that last push. Saquon Barkley, Dexter Lawrence, um, Kayvon Thibodeau. McCain, one of their DBs, Xavier McKinney, was just off the top. A lot of contending teams would be very lucky to have those guys, and why would you trade them in the offseason when you could hold them until midseason and get more out of them? I think that's his thought process, at least. Could end up being worse if Saquon holds out. He's going to wish he moved him in the offseason. I know I offered an arm and a leg for Saquon like a month ago,
That
and
is
I'm
the
sure
catch
I'm not
20.
the only one.
So, what you're thinking is that he knows he's in a cutthroat division. He is just biding his time and looking for some teams near the trade deadline who are actually going to spend a bit more on some of these players.
Yeah,
So basically, you're saying that they would sit there and try and flip during the trade deadline to get a little bit more value out of their key players. Is what you're thinking is
Yeah,
the
I don't
mind process.
know. I don't know if they wait all the way to the trade deadline, but I think we're definitely looking at once the season starts, they may jump in and be a little more active in moving players around. Because yeah, I mean they have to be able to look at their division and see that the Eagles and the Cowboys are going to run away with this thing, and even with the edge, the Commanders are right on their heels. There's no way that they can compete at this point. So
Yeah, like it's definitely one of the more cutthroat leagues, our divisions. I I wonder. It's not one of those things where you have to trade to diversify in this league because we've set it up to a point where I mean that's just 1 week that they're going to be gone or they're going to auto lose for the most part.
yeah,
I mean, if you had a team like Philadelphia or Kansas City, those real life teams that were going to score tons of points with their players, you could probably get by with trading as little as possible and just working with what you got and taking the L 1 week.
yeah.
Um, as for what we project in terms of their record, I'll go first on this one. I actually have the Giants going 3-11. So, or I'm sorry, 2-11.
I was about to say
That's a two.
that's too many numbers.
That's a two there. So 2-11 on the year.
I'm curious.
So
Okay, of that 2-11, who are the two wins you have?
let me pull it back up here. It's going to give me a second here. Edge, if you want to think about what you think they might be, you can jump in as well, since he's throwing me into the under the bus here.
I
Really?
assumed you had your notes up.
I don't put which 2 teams
Oh, I have it all.
or which teams. Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, I also have the Giants going 2-11.
Okay.
So we match. This is the second time now that we're just gonna start matching records. I have them
Uh,
winning week 1 versus the Rams and week 5 versus the Patriots, and outside of that, losing every other game.
see, when I actually put this together, I had only offensive numbers to go off of. I think week one was one of their wins, and then the other win I had them going on. I want to say against the Dolphins, actually.
Interesting.
Week 9, I think they beat the Dolphins out. Week 5 against the Patriots. Um, that's another one. I think I had them going to 2-11, 3-10 ish, and that was one of the ones that I went back and forth on. But
Yeah.
I think the Dolphins they're gonna put up a fight, but I think that the Giants are a little bit better. And yeah, I think at week 1 against the Rams.
I think that by week 9 versus the Dolphins, they've probably traded away most of the players
That's
that
a
are
good
giving them
point.
points.
Yeah, that's a good point actually.
We'll see
If
though.
it, I
I
mean,
could be wrong. He could just hold.
yeah. But that's really all we have on the Giants. We'll go next up into Philly. Philly had some questions. They actually DM'd me their answers to the questions, so we'll have some real answers for that. Let me pull them up.
Real quick, back in looking at the Giants there, I think their biggest weakness is definitely going to be their defense. If you look towards their defense there, they don't really have an established linebacker on their roster, even. It's all of the dual eligibility
Yeah.
DNs. So you have guys like Thibodeau, Aziz Ojolari, Nolan Smith. They even still have like Leonard Williams on their bench. So I can definitely see them moving a lot of their D line to try to pick up that. Julian Love is going to be hit or miss with the Seahawks now,
Yeah,
being behind Diggs and Adams.
and I think that's why my projections, like I said, I did them either yesterday or the day before. They were a lot different looking than they are today. Today it looks like they could possibly go in 13. I don't think they will. I still think that week 1 they're edging out the Rams, and that would probably be the only one that I would give them a better than 50-50
Yeah.
to win.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that. They could easily go 3-10, 2-11, 1-12, anywhere in that range.
right. So yeah, next, like I said, is going to come up to Philly. I got a couple questions answered from him. I'll go with my question first to him. Uh, let's see here. So where is it? My personal question was, with his offense looking so top heavy, how concerned is he that if one of his top guys goes down, does he think he'll be able to fix that with depth trade, or what lack of picks he has left? Um, his answer for that was he doesn't really concern himself with injuries too often because it happens, to every team. So he doesn't plan for it. In a perfect world, obviously he would like to have depth at every position. Just in a 32 man league, it's just nearly impossible to do.
Yeah.
He'd rather deal with them as they come, as you never know who it may be that gets injured. If someone does get injured during the year, he feels like he's put himself in a better position than most to make a trade to cover any injury, as he did leave himself some bargaining chips for in-season moves. So
Yes, speaking of which, he still has his 2024 first round pick. Not his, he
yeah,
actually has the Seahawks first round pick. But he does still have a first
um,
round pick and a fourth round pick next year.
yeah, yeah.
And
He's
mostly
missing
all
the
of
middle
his,
ones,
he's just missing his third in 2025. So he still has
and
a lot of picks going forward.
that first pick will probably be better than the pick that he'll end up with. Still will be a pretty high pick in my
Yeah.
opinion because I think Steele's gonna
Still a
do well
first,
this
though, and
year.
if we're just looking for depth, then it's going to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so that was his answer for me. And then the Edge had a couple of questions. He kind of paraphrased them. Is there a plan to fix the running back position and the second flex spot, or do you see D Hop and Tyreek picking up the slack? Kind of the same answer question I had for the most part. His answer was a lot more in detail though. So the Swift trade threw a wrench into his running back plans for sure. He thought the Eagles would give Gainwell a real shot at being the man this year, the way they used him in the playoffs. He says, I've reached out to a couple of teams to gauge prices on some guys, but ultimately they are asking more than I'm willing to pay right now. I don't place a lot of emphasis on the RB position in PPR leagues anyway. This isn't 1999 fantasy football, so it's not something that overly concerns me. I may still try to acquire someone down the line if it's killing me, but I think between my top players and my defense, I should be competitive either way. As far as the second flex spot, I am not worried about having Watkins there. I think he'll produce enough to be more for me to be competitive. You're not going to get 30 points every game from every slot. There's just not enough players to go around for the amount of teams we have. So not really seeing it as a position that needs to be fixed, quotation. So
he's not wrong about the running back slot. Like, obviously, outside of like the top 10 guys, it falls off pretty hard after that in PPR.
And that's falling into real life as well.
Yeah.
You're seeing, I mean, the running backs are complaining about getting paid as it is, and rightfully so, because running backs, they're only around for 5 or 6 years, and that's pretty much their rookie contract,
Yep.
plus maybe a year or two, which is usually just franchise tagged on, and at that point they're used up, and no one wants to pay them. So,
Well, and what we're seeing with a lot of teams nowadays, like look at the last few teams that won Super Bowl. None of them have had superstar running backs.
No.
Yeah.
It's always in the running back by committees or guys on rookie contracts that they can just replace as soon as they get.
I mean, the Chiefs have been doing it for years. The last running back that the Chiefs had was Jamal Charles.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
more and more you're seeing two-headed backfields. There is no more real premier back except for maybe 5 guys in the league. And that's just the way that it's becoming, which is unfortunate for running backs because they do
even
take
on some of the teams that have a premier back. Look at the Browns. They have Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is one of the best pure runners in the league, and they still supplemented him with Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
It's actually really odd to me. One of the first teams that started doing running back by committee was New England, but if you look at them now, they're one of the few teams that have a premier back.
Yeah.
All right. So third question was again a paraphrase. Want to hear views on Johnson? Will he project guy, or do you see him as a producer off that get-go? His answer was, I like Johnson more than the other wide receivers I passed up in the draft based on his situation versus talent. He should see the field immediately with the injury history of the 2 guys in front of him. He's probably not going to get a lot more points than are being projected. So he feels like where he's being projected is going to be pretty much where he ends up in real life.
Yeah, for context, Quentin Johnston, Chargers wide receiver. Obviously he's not replacing Keenan Allen or Mike Williams, but he's definitely getting the third slot over Joshua Palmer. Or Jalen Gooten.
Gooten. What about Keelan Doss? You forgot about Keelan Doss.
Oh yeah, who?
Yeah. So I think Johnson is going to be a pretty good wide receiver with the guy that's throwing to him. And there is a lot of injury history there.
And yeah, like you said, all it takes is Keenan Allen to get looked at wrong, and he's out for half the season, and all of a sudden QJ is the number 2 wide receiver there. Yeah, how big is he? QJ is 6'4", 215 pounds. So I mean,
we're a big boy for wide receiver.
Mike Williams is too. That's gonna be a fucking one of those situations where Herbert can just be like, oh fuck it, QJ Mike Williams down there somewhere.
Yeah.
So does that bring into the question that Keenan Allen's typically their slot guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
The Chargers. If he goes down, are you putting Quentin Johnson into the slot, or are you putting Palmer? Palmer did perform pretty well in the slot last year.
I assume it's still gonna be Mike Williams and probably Quentin Johnston now on the outside, and Keenan Allen working out of the slot mostly. And then if Keenan Allen goes down, you just shove Palmer into the slot and hope, I don't know. I guess because Herbert does like to throw to Allen a lot, and he does throw to the slot a lot. So,
yeah. For reference, Palmer scored 171 fantasy points last year. So
yeah,
definitely wasn't a slouch.
I guess they could move QJ to the slot. It's not, he's just a little tall, but I don't know.
Well, he was never really known for his route running, though, in college.
Yeah.
He was more so that toss-it-up type of guy.
Yeah,
which
just like
obviously
Mike Williams.
Yeah.
He's basically about the same as Mike Williams, 6'4",
Yeah.
218, 6'4", 215.
And that's Mike Williams. You just throw it near him high enough that he can get it, and he catches it.
Yeah, just 6 years less damage and wear and tear on his body. So
Yeah. I fully
It does
expect
set
him
Herbert
to.
and Chargers up for a pretty long time, though. You figure Mike Williams and Keenan Allen don't have very long. Well, you have Quentin Johnson and Palmer, which are basically just replacements of those two.
Yep, pretty much.
yeah, it actually surprises me. I always think Eckler has been around the league a lot. Or no, I'm sorry, not Eckler. Allen, he has been around the league a lot longer. So 10
Yeah.
years. So I mean, 31. It's kind of getting near the end of the road for receivers. He probably has another 2-3 years where he might be able to do something, but yeah, I think Johnson will be a fine QB or RB wide receiver 3. There we go. There we go. I one of those positions for him, and he really just has to use one running back. Gainwell may be enough to be sufficient, but the real serious thing is he's got a great quarterback and a great tight end.
Yeah.
So I mean, those 3 spots, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, are going to be his money makers, along with his defense here. So,
Yeah, he got Will Anderson in the draft. Don't sleep. His projection's low too on Sleeper. I think Will Anderson's gonna fucking ball.
Will Anderson?
Yeah.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
As for projections, Watkins, you can start this one out. What do you have Philly going?
I have the Eagles going 10-3, with their only losses coming to the Cowboys in week 2, the 49ers in week 3, and the Cardinals in week 10.
Okay. Actually have them going 9-4.
Okay.
So pretty close.
My spicy one is the Cardinals in week 10, but if you look, that is the Eagles bye week, so they lose Gainwell. It's also the Dolphins bye week, so they lose Tyreek Hill. So out of their starting lineup, they won't have Gainwell, Tyreek Hill, Dallas Goedert, Quez Watkins, Jalen Hurts, and then on defense they lose Hassan Reddick, Darius Slade. So, and the Cardinals are just good enough that they're gonna be able to make up that gap and then some.
I think the Cardinals are sneaky good.
They are.
Yeah, I have him actually losing week 1 to Seattle.
Interesting.
I have him losing week 2 to Philadelphia or to Dallas. I have him losing week 3 to San Francisco. So those are 3 of them. And then the last one was down here. Where was it? I had them winning against the Cowboys week 8, but it's gonna be close. Week 10 against the Cardinals was my other one.
Interesting. So. Yep. Yeah, I have them splitting with the Cowboys also. We'll see if that happens or not. But
yeah, I actually have them going 0-3 to start, but I that easily could change. So I mean,
I got them beating the Seahawks. I think they'll start 1-2.
They may have to. I mean, like I said, if one of their wide receivers drops, they're going to be hurting to fill in those offensive slots. So, so that's what I got on Philly. Next would be Dallas. Again, I actually just got some questions answered from him, DMs. So there were 3. All of these were from TheEdge. They were really good questions. So the first question was, you have a pretty solid team, but do you see Swift being able to turn around his career? His answer was, Swift is going to prove to be a crucial part of my team's season, one way or another. If he's able to recapture the value he demonstrated early in his career and takes advantage of the excellent situation he's in now, then he could be a cornerstone piece for me. But if that doesn't work out and Claypool finds his way into my starting lineup consistently, then things could get weird in a hurry. And I feel like these answers to these questions are actually pretty well thought out. I really am very happy that none of these answers are like one-word answers. Yes, no. But yeah, so I it's funny because I think having Swift is kind of a double like stab to Philadelphia's chances here, because it is Philadelphia's or he is Philly's running back now.
Yes.
So he has them in the division. And I mean, he is to me, I think he's a good running back. He's more of a pass receiver out of the back, but I feel like he what's he projected at? 193. I think that'll probably be a pretty decent projection. I think he'll just edge over 200 points with Philly.
Yeah, and
He's definitely shown he's been a good back. It's just his health has always been the huge question mark with him.
Yeah, I mean, 2020, 13 games, 15 games, 14 games. So that's what 3 games and then 4 games and then 3 games. I think they started 17 games in 21.
But
So
if
yeah,
you look in those seasons last year, from week 9 on, he only went over 50% snap share after week 9. So definitely trying to preserve his health there too.
yeah, I mean, 67, 51. I mean, week after, I mean, week 16, week 13, he was over 50%, but definitely there after he was hurt for sure. They did come back after the bye and give him 55% of the snaps. He only got 16% of the snaps against Green Bay and 31 against both Chicago and New York. So he definitely was kind of edged out there for about a 4 or 5 week period, and it looked like they tried to bring him back in again. Um, but yeah, I think him being on the Cowboys but being in real life on the Eagles really is going to hurt
yeah.
Philadelphia more than helping Dallas.
Also, you got to think. So Swift and it flex for the Cowboys, but every time they don't hand off the ball to Swift, they're handing it off to Kenneth Gainwell instead, which helps the Eagles. But every time they don't hand it off to Gainwell, they're handing it off to Swift, which hurts the Eagles and helps the Cowboys. So they're just even like being in the same division and having good teams and being each other's like biggest rival, for wins in this division wasn't enough. They had to go and have this fucking Swift and Gainwell thing going on.
Right.
The only thing I have towards that, didn't Eagles sign Rashad Penny too?
Did they?
Let's find out. They did. He is actually the backup
Interesting.
right now.
Well,
And they still have Boston Scott, who also gets 1 or 2 carries or throws or something a game too.
I didn't realize they signed Rashad Penny. That's interesting. So it could end up being Penny in the backup role instead, and then just Gainwell still doing. I think he helps on special teams doing kick returns and punt returns here and there.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Penny is also one of those guys who just he's good, but he could never stay healthy. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
5, 10, 3, 10, 14 in 2018. Yeah, I mean, it just seems like Philly's going to have running backs, but they're all going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting committee to look at. I don't know that Swift is necessarily the lead back, but he's probably going to be, as close as you get to a lead back in a committee.
Yeah. I mean, and when you have Hurts, I mean, you don't really need a great lead back. So,
Yeah.
Having Hurts may actually help open it up for Swift for some of those quick flat passes. So,
True.
The next question was also with your quarterback situation, do you see either of them as long-term starters? Just for reference, starters are Goff, Hooker, and Cooper Rush. His answer to that was, I plan on ordering a Jared Goff jersey, and it will be my go-to game day jersey of choice. I currently have 8 dynasty teams, and he's on one of only 4 players I currently have at least 3 shares of. I'm very confident in his ability to repeat his success last year, not just for the season, but for the foreseeable future. I don't understand how anyone could have watched him lead that offense last year and feel anything other than confidence in his ability to produce week in and week out. And even though I had only 1 pick in our rookie draft, I was doing cartwheels in the war room when his backup and project quarterback fell right in my lap. These aren't your daddy's Lions, and that offense is going to be elite for years to come. And I have their quarterback room locked up until further notice. I'm very happy with my quarterback situation, not to mention the ARSB stack has to buoy the value of Goff Hooker, even if just a bit. I actually think I wanted Hooker. He picked him. He snatched him right before I did. I think Hooker is going to be a good quarterback. Not maybe great, but I don't think you have to be a great quarterback when you look at that Lions offense now
Yeah.
and see who he can throw to. So,
I actually agree with what he answered. I love Goff, and I'm not going to apologize for it. Even as a Bears fan, watching the Lions get just atrociously better over the past like 2 years, I'm fucking hyped for it.
I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback.
No,
I'm
I think
saying
that's good enough to carry that position for the Cowboys clear into the playoffs.
you know who I would actually compare him to? Joe Flacco.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. A quarterback who was mediocre,
He went to the Super
but
Bowl.
was exactly. It went to the Super Bowl. And he rode the rest of the team to do it. And it doesn't happen often. He's not the worst. His numbers were really good last year. 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. I don't see any universe in which he matches or does less than 7 interceptions this year.
No, I
I
think
think
what he did last year is probably his ceiling, but I think
yeah.
that's fine.
All right. Third
Next
question
question.
was, lastly, do you feel with Lions' addition of Jack Campbell, how bad does it hurt your linebacker situation?
For context,
His,
his linebackers are James Houston and Alex Anzalone, both of the Detroit Lions.
I think he actually has
Does
3 of them.
still have Leighton Vander Esch and Malcolm Rodriguez.
Yeah. So he has Anzalone,
Vander Esch is on the
Houston,
Cowboys, though.
Yeah, but he has 3 from the Lions there.
yeah, Rodriguez, yeah. So he
Oh, he does
basically
have Malcolm
has, yeah,
Rodriguez.
he basically has Detroit's linebacker room except for the rookie Jack Campbell. So his answer, as far as my linebacker situation is concerned, my defense in general feels a little like a wait and see type deal. I don't think I have reason enough to force a move one way or another. Can't really say that my linebacker core has an abundance of talent, but I do have at least a bit of depth with Clark, Morrow, Van Der Esch, Anzalone, and Rodriguez. It feels serviceable, albeit not very flashy. Um, I agree with that. I don't know that he'll have too much of an issue um, at linebacker. Uh,
No, Alex Anzalone is very good. He's not like a big name player. Like if you start naming linebackers off the top of your head, most people aren't going to name Alex Anzalone, but he's very good. And
yeah,
I don't think Campbell's gonna push Anzalone out for snaps at all. I'm also big on James Houston. I think James Houston is gonna be a stud.
Is James Houston an edge player or a linebacker?
He's a linebacker. I think he's gonna play probably middle linebacker for the Lions. And
let's see.
Anzalone plays outside linebacker, I'm pretty sure. I
They
think
got
Rodriguez also
Houston.
plays outside linebacker. I think if anybody gets pushed out for snaps for Campbell, it's going to be Malcolm Rodriguez.
They got Houston as the backup middle linebacker to Derek Barnes, actually. So, in terms of their depth chart, so
Oh, it's
uh,
Charmander.
yeah, but he's been injured, so
Yeah,
we'll
I
see.
think James Houston's going to be the starter.
Yeah.
Maybe not week 1, but he will be.
Here's an important thing to consider in all that as well. I mean, now that I'm looking at his team, but it may be a little bit different. But you only have to play 2. He will probably be playing 3 because I would be more
Houston is
concerned
dual
about.
also. Houston could play defensive line, which I think is where he's got him slotted in at. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's not much going on there at defensive line, and not much there going into secondary. I'd be more concerned about those than his linebacker.
I don't know. Donovan Wilson's very good.
Okay, there's one. What about this second slot?
Yeah, I don't know. I just said Donovan Wilson's good.
Yeah, okay. So,
But yes,
um,
true. I think I'm not so worried about linebacker. I don't know though. Defensive back, if you look at his bench, he's got Trayvon Diggs, very good. Only 24. He's got Malik Hooker. I mean, obviously it's Cowboys depth people. He's also got Kyler Gordon, one of the starting corners for the Bears, who's, as a Bear fan, I can tell you Kyler Gordon looks very promising. It's just going to be if he can keep his job. The Bears like to play a lot of corners. we just fucking mix and match slot corners like they're interchangeable. We have like
Yeah,
six of them, I feel like.
They do have him starting with no projection. 174 points last year in 14 games.
But Kyler Gordon is perfectly serviceable.
Yeah. I would be more concerned about defensive line and defensive backs than the linebacker core. I don't think that'll be too much of an issue, but
yeah,
When I did ask the question, I didn't know, or I didn't notice that he still had Damon Clark and Van Der Esch
yeah.
too. So I missed that when I had asked the question.
I mean, it is a legit question though. That like Campbell coming into that Lions linebacker core is gonna
and you having the entire room. Yeah,
is gonna take snap share away from everybody around him at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you've got everybody else in the linebacker room for the Lions, it's going to hurt a little bit. But like I said, he's got Malcolm Rodriguez on his bench, not even as a starter, and I think that's going to be the player that Campbell takes snaps from the most. So I don't think it's going to bother him that much.
All right. Well, what do you project his win-loss record to be?
I have the Cowboys going 11-2, with their only losses coming to the Cardinals in Week 7 and the Eagles in Week 8.
So you have them at 11-2 and Philly at 10-3.
Yes. Again with the Cardinals beating, I have the Cardinals beating the Eagles and the Cowboys this year.
I have the Cardinals beating the Cowboys as well.
Yes, that's Week 7 is the Cowboys bye week, and that's when they go up against the Cardinals. The Cardinals are just going to have the luckiest schedule this year. I can't wait to get to their division to see what I have them at.
I have Dallas actually going 10-3. So apparently you think both teams are one game better than I.
Yeah.
So I do have Dallas winning the division.
Who do you have them losing to besides Cardinals Eagles?
Cardinals Eagles, and then it was actually 3 games in a row. So Cardinals Eagles and
Jets.
The New York Jets.
That could be a lot closer. The Jets, I think, are a team a lot of people aren't looking at as well as they should be. When I was doing the prep for this and looking at the matchups with the Jets, I was like, oh shit, this team's actually really good.
Yeah. I think they lose those 3 games and win the division. So, spoiler alert for Washington's win-loss record. So they're not going 10-3 or better in my opinion. So, to go straight into it, we will do now the Washington Redskins team. The last one. So this is where the edge is really going to shine here. First off, I'm going to give you some time to kind of go over how you felt like you wanted to build your team, what you feel like you've done well, and what you feel like you may have missed out on.
So really going into how I built my team. When I first came in, I was kind of in that second wave of trades. I missed the initial major wave of trades when a lot of the big players were moved, like Olave, and a lot of those players like that. So I kind of looked at it. You have your really top-heavy teams that are going towards your win year, or your win this year. Your Cowboys, your Eagles, your Chiefs. And then you also have your teams like the Texans, the Saints, and Green Bay, who were full tanking and going for picks. With so many teams going one way or another, I felt that it was going to be hard for me to kind of get in on any of that, and also factoring in the division that I'm in. But I also didn't feel that my team was bad enough to fully tank. So kind of my idea of building my team was building it off of a bunch of young players. So I know I had just mentioned it in chat, but the average age of my entire starting roster is 23.4 years old.
Now, to be fair to that, that is because you did pick up a whole lot of rookies, and you have.
But I don't have. I have one rookie on my starting roster.
Right. Yeah, his starting roster is. He and I are kind of built the same way. We built real young. I think if you averaged out the age of the starting roster of every team in the league, the Commanders and the Bears would both be in the top 5. We built kind of the same way.
Yeah.
The only rookie in my starting roster is Dalton Kincaid.
Well, my argument was once we dropped down to 15, that age would probably go up because a lot of those would probably be dropped on your bench. But
that wasn't factoring in my bench. That was just.
No, he's talking just the starting lineup.
Yeah, I'm seeing that now. Yeah,
Juju's the oldest
Juju's
person
probably
on
your
my
oldest guy. Yeah,
other than
20.
Jacoby Brissett.
Well, it is a young man's game. I mean, really, you're going to see anybody over 30 is going to be defensive line or offensive line, and we don't play with the offensive line. But 23.4, when you're considering most people are coming out of college at 22, means you've got a pretty damn young team. So,
Yeah.
And kind of going into looking at my bench there, yeah, we do have a lot of cuts, and I do have it pretty well to see on who's by how I have players nicknamed on my team, on who I have staying and who I have fighting for a roster spot. Well, my major pieces being Reed Blankenship, Christian Harris, Trayvon Walker, Josh Palmer, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Tyhee Spears. They're not flashy players at all, but they're players that I think have a lot of room to grow and can do considerably better.
Shout out Luke Musgrave too. I'm a big fan of Luke Musgrave. I think that's going to be a solid piece along with Dalton Kincaid that's going to lock down your tight end spot for years to come.
Going into the draft, tight end was definitely my weakest position out of everything, and I 100% feel like I shored that up pretty quickly.
Okay. So I did have a couple of questions. I think the biggest glaring thing that I'm looking at, and put it on the screen right now, is the quarterback situation. Your starting quarterback right now is Howell. Do you think that he would be or can be the answer to get you to stay relevant in the division, or are you planning on, because we don't have to have a quarterback, maybe your super flex being something other than a quarterback?
So kind of going into it a little bit, Sam Howell, he did play one game last year, given it was week 18, so I don't think the Cowboys were playing all their starters. But to me, he did look promising. The only thing I'm worried of, I think he has that starter job locked down. I have no worry about Brissett really taking over at all this year. The only thing I am worried about is with the sale of the Commanders, whoever buys the Commanders is going to want to buy into a winning team. Well, if Rivera has shown that he can't have a winning team and he's wanting to keep his job, that's the only way I'm worried about them moving towards a veteran in Jacoby Brissett and playing him.
Sometimes, I mean, to interject, sometimes I feel like a new owner actually wants their guy at quarterback and their guy to be somebody young. So, I mean, that could be that whoever buys them thinks Howell is the answer as well.
And that's what I'm hoping for. And I also do kind of have a backup plan if Howell doesn't work out. I do feel like I have a lot of pieces. I don't have a lot of draft pieces in 24, which is pretty evident. But with picking up the Saints' second round pick, which in theory should be a fairly high second round pick.
I don't think there's got to be any in theory about it. It's going to be a very high second round pick.
But if Howell doesn't work out, I just play 24 without a quarterback, and I'm content with that. And go into 25 with my full set of picks and a lot of trade pieces that will still be very young guys that I can move to either pick up another flex, a solid flex position, or to potentially pick up a quarterback.
Okay.
You and I built our team in a very similar fashion in that we went competitive but young, so that even, like, obviously I don't, and you'll see when we do our projections, I don't think you're competing with the Eagles and the Cowboys this year, but I also don't think that you have to with how young your roster is. Every year that goes by, these guys take one more step, and their guys take steps back, or they lose guys. I mean, the Eagles have DeAndre, right? Or no?
Yep, they have Hopkins, they have Tyreek, and they have
Tyreek
Goddard.
and Hopkins and Goddard. Yeah, all three of those guys are gone in a couple years.
Yeah, probably 3 years max.
And your guys are hitting their prime in a couple years. I love the way that your roster is constructed, personally.
Okay. I mean, I don't disagree. I
And
would
yeah,
be concerned.
quarterback is obviously the weak link with Howell because we just don't know. But I mean, it's the same with like Desmond Ritter.
Desmond Ritter, Mac Jones,
Yeah,
plenty is in that same position.
even Trey Lance too. Trey Lance or Brock Purdy, any of these guys could be the next Tom Brady. You never know.
I would say that out of all the teams that may end up with a super flex, this I could see as one of them would actually be still a competitive team.
Yeah.
Most of the teams that are going to have super flexes, I think, in this year at least minimum, are going to be those teams who are tanking and don't have a chance because they don't have a quarterback to throw out there. So it's nice to have options. And he does have McLaurin. I mean, his wide receivers are decent. I like McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and then he's got Logan Thomas at tight end as well. And I'm a huge Brian Robinson fan. They don't even have the
Antonio
other running back.
Gibson.
Yeah, he's not even in here. My only other question, you kind of walked into it a little bit when you're talking about the fact that you have no draft picks, was how competitive, and you kind of talked about TheEdge as well. How competitive do you see yourself being the fact that you have no draft picks, or very limited draft picks, and the potential that you may not have a starting quarterback for the next year or two without any kind of trade material?
And kind of my reasoning behind trading those draft picks was because I was going after young guys. I'll take young, proven guys over draft pick 9 out of 10 days of the week.
Okay.
But that was kind of my reasoning behind that. But I still didn't trade all of my draft picks in 25, so it does give me some leeway to make up for any depth I have to get, or if I do have to try to get up to a quarterback.
Do you have a quarterback in mind that you are looking for to drafting eventually? I don't know how far into the college you go, so
I plead the fifth.
Okay.
I wouldn't answer that question either. It's okay.
All right. Well, the most important question, what do you see your record?
I see my record at 8 or 9 wins. Obviously, I'm biased, and I'll kind of go through it the week here. I definitely think I beat Arizona week 1, and then week 2, I would say pretty certain I'd take the Giants. Week 3 and 4, I think I lose to Seattle and the Cowboys. Week 3, with how my projection is, was a lot closer than what I was expecting it to be. I think I beat the Jets in week 5, and then I split with the Eagles in 6 and week 13. But yeah, I kind of have myself sitting at that 8 or 9 win mark.
Okay. 8-5, 9-4, somewhere around there. So you
Yeah.
see yourself in a good spot to potentially still win this division.
Not to win the division. I don't think I can beat the Cowboys.
Bubble wildcard team.
I could definitely see myself making
on the bubble.
Yeah, being in that kind of area to potentially make playoffs towards the end of the season.
I would think anything 7-6 and above is probably getting you into the playoffs with
on the bubble at least
14 teams. I mean, it's half
14 teams.
Yeah. All right. Well, what about you, Watkins? What do you got them at?
I have the Commanders going 6-7. We love the match.
I do too. Yes, 6-7 is where I've got them. Which for
and
this
I definitely
division, go ahead.
I definitely think the one that you guys probably wouldn't agree with me is week 6 against Eagles.
Yeah, correct. I have you losing out to the Cowboys and the Eagles, but you very could easily split with either of them. I could see it. There's a couple of games I have marked as could be a lot closer than we think they will be.
I have you losing both games to the Cowboys and splitting with the Eagles. So There's
I do
three
have
of
you
those.
when you said earlier that you think you beat the Cardinals in Week 1. I agree. I have you beating the Cardinals in Week 1, and it just makes me laugh that I've got the Cardinals as like the team that's got
Beating
your
the
division's
Cowboys and the
number.
Eagles.
Yeah, they beat the Cowboys and the Eagles this year. I think like no questions asked. But you're the team that beats them.
I definitely think that has to do with it being week 1 and them having a lot of rookies, and
Yeah.
rookies don't usually perform the best right away.
That and they just happen to be playing the Cowboys and Eagles on the weeks where it's bye week hell for them.
That, and they'll probably have Kyler Murray back by
That is true.
then.
That is true.
If he is back by week 1, like he says, I don't think he really performs the best because it feels really rushed then.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so there's the 4 teams we've got. So we've got, I've got it going Cowboys, Eagles, Redskins, Giants.
I agree with that.
Very good chance that 3 teams in this division actually make the playoffs.
Very true.
The only thing we've got.
One thing to TJ that I know you've mentioned quite a bit on me having a lot of rookies, but when you look at which ones I've mainly kept, you got guys like Trey Palmer, who realistically be the Bucks' number 3 guy, and he was one of the fastest guys in the draft. Usually doesn't mean a whole lot, but then you got guys like Musgrave, Jason Taylor, who should start at safety for the Rams, Jacorian Bennett, who's projected to start for the Raiders at corner. But then you also got guys like A.T. Perry, Justin Shortier, and Bryce Ford Wheaton, who could be nothing, but they're guys that have a lot of high hopes in. And I think my favorite one, which would be surprising enough, is J.L. Skinner. I think I have him in every
J.L. Skinner. I think he's going to be good.
He kind of reminded me of like a Cam Chancellor type of player.
Yeah.
I think the only reason he fell so far in the draft was due to that shoulder injury.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, so I do bring up the fact that you have a lot of rookies, and it's not that I'm knocking, because honestly, in like this 2 teams, picking up a whole bunch of people who could be, who you don't know what they're going to do, is pretty much all you've got. You're either going to pick up some guys who could be something, or you're going to sit there and pick up the guys who are 3-4 years into the league who have always been journeymen or practice squad guys who get a day or 2 in the sun. So it's not a bad.
The main thing I viewed is with your depth guys, like any of the depth guys that the Redskins have, you basically know what they are, what they're going to be, unless there's, for some reasons, one of them has a turnaround of some sort.
Yeah.
Rookies, you do have that chance still of them being a very good player.
And I would actually put onto the defensive side that's extremely true, especially because there's only 7 defensive positions, but all 11 players out on the defensive side of the ball are scoring points, and you just don't know who's going to be that week's guy who gets 10, 11 tackles, and it could be somebody who plays, in the nickel package, but they just happen to play a team that's always throwing, so they'll get those points.
And I was really glad that Denzel Mims got waived today, so I have time to, hopefully he gets picked up somewhere.
Yeah, well, someday when Watkins finally decides to give us a date to drop down to 15, we'll go over that
preseason.
Preseason, which is 3 weeks long, so who knows?
I'll announce something soon. For everybody watching, I will announce something soon on the exact plan for cutting people down to 15.
That'll be his project after he decides to put a new page in Discord on how many times in a week the blue tint ends up popping up or something like that. So
I like tracking things.
Apparently. Clearly he did.
I thought that was a good idea. You let us know. I think the keeping track of projections versus actual points scored is pretty cool over the course of the season.
I like it. More power to you. That's all I'm going to say, because you're going to burn yourself out at this rate doing all this stuff. Anyway, on to the final 2 things that we've got, and that is the offensive and defensive players of the year.
MVPs.
So I'll do the offensive player first, and then you can do the defensive player first.
Yep.
For me, it's easy. It came down to two players, both on the Eagles, and I think Hill will have a rougher start this year than he probably should, because I think he's been having some issues outside of the NFL. But clear cut for me is Hurts.
Yeah.
It's
I
going to be
mean,
Jalen Hurts.
it's likewise. I also have Jalen Hurts. That's the answer. I don't think that I can make a case for anybody else in this division on the offensive side of the ball to score more fantasy points this year than Jalen Hurts.
I think Hill would be the closest one.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill obviously could have a monster year, and Hurts could have kind of a regression year, and he could slip past him. But I'm gonna always go to the quarterback in the edge case.
You could potentially throw Saquon out there, because Saquon may score 13, 14 touchdowns instead of the projected 10. But he may not even start week 1 at this rate.
Theoretically, Daniel Jones could be a dark horse if he, picks it up this year. But I really think the easy and obvious answer is Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Edge? Do you have any say in this?
It's going to be kind of a dark horse, but CeeDee Lamb. I
don't hate that either. I don't hate that answer.
I think Deluxe would love that answer, because that would mean that Prescott is doing what he's supposed to be doing as quarterback for the Cowboys.
I think the Cowboys would love that answer too.
With the way Mike McCarthy runs his things, I can definitely see them locking onto one wide receiver and him just having a really good year.
I mean, that's only a 60 fantasy point difference last year between CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Hurts. And again, if Jalen Hurts just regresses a little bit and is like the number 6 quarterback instead of the number 2 quarterback, and CeeDee Lamb jumps from like the number 5 PPR wide receiver to like the number 2 or 3, if Dak has a really good year, then you'd be looking at CeeDee Lamb overtaking Jalen Hurts with fantasy points scored.
Just for reference, I mean, in 2021 he scored 240 fantasy points. 2022 305, so that's a 60-point jump right there.
Yeah.
So he scored over 300 points last year. That is a lot for any player. There's probably only about 15 maybe in the league that score over 300, maybe a little more than that. All right.
Can't all
anyway,
be shady.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, we kind of saw the squirrel and went for it.
Yeah. We're good for that.
Onto the defensive MVP for the NFC East. Who do you got?
Just like last week, when I had both the offensive and defensive MVP being from the same team, I also have one of the Eagles players being the defensive MVP in TJ Edwards. Chicago Bear, TJ Edwards, by the way.
Oh, that's all bias being a Bears fan.
300 point scorer last year.
I actually agree.
Ooh. This is the first time we've agreed on one, let alone both.
So I was between Edwards. I really like Vander Esch, but he's getting old. And I had one more person who actually was way down here.
I was going to say you're scrolling real far down.
I can't remember.
Jalen Phillips?
No. It was the other Eagles.
Kobe Dean?
Hassan Reddick?
Kaiser what?
Hassan Reddick. There we go.
Oh.
What was it? 15 sacks. The only issue is he just doesn't get the tackles.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, now that Edwards is out, someone's got to tackle for that team. But then I started looking.
Yeah, I think you're going to see people like Nolan Smith and.
I started looking through, and he's never been a high tackle guy. So it's always been about the sacks.
I don't think Hassan Reddick is really picking up any of the slack from some of the defensive changes they made this year. I think you're going to see Nolan Smith and Jordan Davis and who was the other guy that they grabbed in the first round? Jalen Carter. You're going to see those guys come in and pick up that slack. I think Hassan Reddick's going to be who he's always been, which is still an elite player. I mean, Hassan Reddick is very good, but he doesn't get the tackles to get there.
Good. Yeah. So I'm actually going with Edwards.
I really like Patrick Queen, and I'm really sad that the Ravens declined his 5th-year option, because I think Patrick Queen is very underrated, and he's on Edge's team along with Jamin Davis. Those next two in the projections for fantasy points this year, which is a real good
Still
fucking
also
spot to
have
be.
Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean, I think, is really underrated in his projections,
Yeah.
being a green dot player on the Eagles team that produced 2 really high scoring fantasy linebackers last year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another player that could easily come in and pick up some of the slack from the defensive changes they made this year. I mean, I don't know how much Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, and Jalen Carter are really coming in day one to start. Jalen Carter maybe, but I think Nolan Smith and Jordan Davis are gonna rotate in and out more often. So Nakobe Dean, if he gets the starter snaps, yeah, could easily get up there.
Looks like he may be, so very possible.
And they have Nicholas Morrow, who came over from the Bears, who's very good. He's underrated. He was very, very good for us. We just, middle linebacker, we don't really need him anymore with getting Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, and then having Jack Sanborn. There's no room to pay Nicholas Morrow at that point. But definitely not a player to
Another
be
guy
overlooked. He
thinking
gets a lot of tackles.
What about you, Edge? Who you thinking?
I was thinking Patrick Queen because if you look, he actually performed better once.
Yeah, once they got
Roquan.
once they freed Patrick Queen up a little bit, once Roquan got there, he exploded.
And having him for a full season there, yeah,
I really am confused by not picking up his 5th-year option.
I think it's more so a money thing after they gave Roquan such a large contract.
Paid Roquan out the ass, which he deserves it. Bear for life.
Paid Lamar, paid Roquan.
Yeah. Patrick Queen's gonna walk after next year straight into a big money contract for a different team. He's a stud. I'm still giving the edge to Edwards, but I could really see Patrick Queen taking that spot.
Okay. Well, that about wraps up week 2. Next one will be the NFC South.
What, are you just going in order now instead of random?
We've been going in order. This is going to be going in order.
Okay. That wasn't the original plan, but I don't care.
So, this is also Kimchi has to wait. So,
Hilarious.
So that'll be what the NFC South will be: the Bucks, the Panthers, and the Saints.
Yeah, there's 4 teams in our division, so that I feel like you listed them all.
Yeah, I think I did list them all. So if any of those 3 owners want to come on, they are more than welcome to.
All right, listen, Buff. I don't have this weird obsession with hating the Falcons. If you want to come on next week or answer questions about the Falcons, you come to me. Don't go to TJ.
Or you just stay in that hellhole called Atlanta, and everything will be fine. So, so it's going to be the NFC South. It ought to be interesting. The hatred is real here. So,
all you have to mention is 28-3.
I'm going to have to do so much talking during the Falcons portion next week. I hate this.
Get up and do something. If any of you guys want to go on, you're more than welcome. Just give us a DM. If anybody has questions for the NFC South owners, TheEdge, you are more than welcome to send them into the questions as well. If not, I will grill the Falcons miserably until he wants to. I don't know.
It's going to be another week of having 2 teams as having a clear separation where there's 2 teams on the bottom and 2 teams at the top.
It's going to be like that for a lot of divisions.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you guys want to jump in and chat for a couple hours, be our guest. It's fun. Cool to get to actually hear and meet some of you guys in real life too. So, but with that, we're going to sign off for the night, and we will all see you guys in another week.
One last shout out. Still taking startup waitlist spots for the Salary IDP League and the Dynasty IDP League. DM me on Discord if you want a guaranteed spot in either of those startups. They're going to start as soon as I have enough owners to run them. So, still spots open.
All right. Sounds good. With that, good night, guys. We'll see you all in about a week.
Later, guys.